new pilots are not flying. Stewardesses are not on flight. Mechanics, MRO companies. That was a whole nother segment of that I didn't even mention there. Fewer planes for all the service industries to support. So this just continues until it settles out. It's going to be tough to know really how we're going to recover, because that recovery plan is still in flux until we see really what the full impact of this is. So the economics of this are going to be far-reaching in terms of what companies look like emerging from it, whether it's through airlines now being partially owned by the U.S. taxpayer as a result of bailouts and loans, or are companies going to, in some cases, turn away from that and say, we're not going to do that because we don't want to give away part of our equity, so we're going to go a different path. And so there's a lot of things still to be figured out. And so it's just going to take time to understand it. But it's a very dynamic time for this industry. And at the end of the day, we need to remember that it is about the people. AIAA has done a lot to remind people of the workforce. It's a very talented workforce, whether it's on the commercial side, the defense side, the educators. This workforce is critical to our national economy and to our national defense, and to a lot of what we take advantage of in terms of just being able to get onto a plane and fly somewhere very easily. So it is a wait and see as we see how the states deal with this. And again, that may mean a fragmented and kind of staggered recovery as we start to see where we can safely do business and who can get back up to speed and start turning out products and things like that. So there's no firm answer right now, but it is certainly a very challenging and interesting time for all these operators and these organizations and companies and suppliers to try and figure out how to navigate some uncharted waters, for sure. See, there's one. Oh, there we go. There's a Zoom question. Okay, that was it. All right, that was kind of what I wanted to walk through real quickly and give some perspective. I'm happy to answer any questions. Anyone? I mean, we're all kind of living through it together. But if there's anything that anyone wanted to chat about, I'm happy to answer. Or public policy stuff. I do. How it all relates to that. Dan has mentioned a couple of times the aviation industry and defense industry are a big part of what's going on in Washington D.C. So.
Thanks, John. Actually, yep. I have a question. We have a very active participant who is AIAA fellow from France. And during the discussion, a question arises that what is AIAA currently doing and what can we do to help other countries in Europe, especially our AIAA members in Europe? So this is for you as well as Dan.
That's a great question. I mean, I think trying to establish some sense, I don't want to say normalcy, but some sense of a way for people to stay connected through events like this, which I think is great. I think these kind of things will provide people some sense of being able to feel like they're still connected with people and still being able to have those discussions. They can't be in person, obviously, but if we can still continue to share information and engage. I mean, I was telling Dan, these are the kinds of things that are important, because these even virtual, doing the webinars where you can share video of people, it just is a chance to kind of feel that you can, have some other way to connect with people beyond just, a lot of us that are in kind of self-isolation right now and self-quarantine in certain states, it's like, I'm not seeing anybody but my family for 24 hours a day. I need, so, and a venue like this, I think, is great. And certainly it helps us keep talking to those people that maybe are in the next city, the next state, the next country. And so I really think anything that we can do around that is going to help provide some relief, I'll say, in terms of feeling that we still have a community out there that we can engage with. Ian?
John, you pretty much nailed it. That's exactly the thought process. And that was the thought process behind the idea of having, you're going to see us start to do more videos, more webinars, and these kinds of things, so that we can build that connection with the membership. And we will make sure that we are broadcasting this out to all of the membership, not just the US, but all of our membership across the globe. so everybody can take advantage of it. And that's a very conscious part of our thought process, is to make sure we're serving all the members. And you will see us doing essentially what John's talked about, is finding ways to build this connection and maintain the connection, given whatever the situation is, and using the best of the tools we have available. So all I can say right now is I don't have specific events or anything scheduled just for the international audience, but everything was going to be available to everyone. And then as we proceed through this, if there are specific items or things of specific interest that the international global community would like to see AIAA work upon, please let us know, and we'll be happy to take that input and see what we can do about it.
Dan, also, can AIAA influence the government to help some other countries like France, because they are having severe problems in supplies?
Well, that's an interesting question. We don't have the connections as much in the global community as we have in the U.S. policymaking world. Gosh, I'd have to go off and think about that, Shakar. I don't know what we could do about that just yet, but I'll have to think about that and see if there's some options. If there are, and particularly, this is where we need the global community to help identify opportunities for us, because we're not necessarily as attuned to it as they are. There's the obvious time differences, there are the obvious culture differences, but if there are opportunities or issues that they see where AIAA can weigh in on, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do about it.
Do we have any other questions for John, either regarding AIAA or just in general Boeing or any aerospace businesses? All right, so now, did someone have a question?
I was just saying not yet. Maybe people think of things later.
Okay, you can always send a text message to the staff, and then we can always, John is going to be available to answer a question.
There was one that just came in, Shakar. I don't know if you want me to answer that. It looks like in the chat window, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
The public will need to be reassured that traveling by air is safe from a health point of view. Do you have a perspective on any plans the airports and airlines may have? That, you know, there are people that already, you know, feel that it's you know, they're continuing to travel, right? So it's gonna be part of a messaging campaign that's gonna have to be done. Certainly there's the component of what the U.S. government is going to say, and all the governments will have to do it, is, you know, talk about how they've addressed the challenges of COVID in general, right? So that's going to be demonstrated experiences of all the massive cleaning and everything else that's going to have to go on. The cruise line the cruise line industry had that same problem with the norovirus for a while. You know, every other week there was a story of someone getting sick on one of the cruise lines because there's so many touch surfaces and things like that. And so, you know, it's probably going to result in a higher level of sustained cleaning beyond what we've, you know, done in reaction to COVID. Is you're probably going to see more examples of just constant.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Oh, I just.
Yeah. And so there's going to be probably more responses that you're going to see like that, of a sustained level of just continual cleaning, whether it's, you know, maybe they'll take longer to turn the airplanes around now. You don't know. They're going to want to do more cleaning on each of the airplanes. They may have to add more staff at airlines and airports to be able to do it. So it's going to be interesting. But I mean, the public will have to see, I think, see some demonstrated response to it long term, and not like, oh, we're through it, okay, we can go back to normal. Unfortunately, though, the news cycles also, after you get through things, tend to be replaced by something else. So we're going to have to, it's going to be a cultural shift in terms of not only airline travel, but when we go to restaurants, to grocery stores, to any place that that this has been able to kind of be demonstrated as a community spread, we're going to have a response to that. And that's probably going to impact the airlines and the airports and all those industries as well.
John, a couple of my colleagues who actually, our company used to be a Boeing company. So many of my colleagues actually own Boeing stock. And some of them actually are very close to the retirement, and they are, now considering what to do because their retirement funds have gone down significantly because the stock went down. So do you have any?
Well, I think it would be hard pressed to find any company that hasn't been hit by this to a significant amount. And so I'm certainly not going to give any advice relative to someone's financial decisions or any, Boeing performance based on, kind of where we are. So, but I mean, everything's been impacted by this, right? So there's no, maybe Zoom stock has gone up significantly. I mean, we're starting to see a recovery. We'll see a recovery at some point for the industry in general, right? So, but those are personal decisions, Shakar. I mean, those are all things that people have to evaluate. What do they need? Where are they? What's their comfort level? And things like that. And so, yeah. So that I don't know. Let's see. There's yeah. There's one other question there. Another question that did pop up. How do you see Boeing sites reacting to the work stop? Is military continuing the work while Seattle is at full stop? Are you all working virtually? So Boeing Seattle, the Puget Sound area has stopped production of commercial aircraft. They are, again, though, that's spilled over, as I mentioned earlier. There are commercial derivative aircraft that are 737 and 767 based aircraft, like the KC-46 tanker for the Air Force and the P-8 Subhunter for the Navy, that are not being produced right now, although they've stood that site down for 2 weeks. Other sites are continuing to support. St. Louis, where we build Super Hornets and F-15s and other things like that, missiles. Those are all continuing to the extent that they can based on the supply lines. So the supply chain is certainly driving. Once they run out of parts at some point, the amount of traveled work they want to do, they want to keep that to a minimum so they can restart as quickly as possible and not have 20 different planes in 20 different states of construction. I know our SLS work down in Michoud was tied to the site down there, and so that work has been suspended to where it can't, for the site perspective, but work is continuing on commercial crew, on SLS and other areas. So it is a mixed bag. There are some sites that we have shut down completely based on kind of the situation of the state, as well as, giving no, shelter in place directive. And some work cannot be done anywhere but in a SCIF. So, it is on a case by case basis, but Boeing has kind of come up with a individual approach to each one. In Southern California, we're pretty much all working from home, but manufacturing and things like that, it's kind of hard to build a satellite from your house. So,